This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
What is your favorite way of making eggs?
My favorite way of making eggs would probably be frittata, just because it's good and it's super easy. My favorite way of having eggs, which is a very different thing, is over easy. Love an over easy egg, but they're not easy to make. So I don't know what's easy about them. Why are they over?
I'm really good at making over easy eggs.
Well, then you make them.
Ask Adam.
I do. It's like one of the few things I can make.
Well, welcome to Ask Adam, everybody. It's a very special edition because this is our 1 million followers edition.
That fly just flew directly in front of you.
There's always a fly. Always a fly in the damn kitchen. Several people to thank. Firstly would be Bon Bon Macon, the bakery that made this beautiful cake and all of these beautiful cookies, including this last one that I'm going to enjoy as we shoot right now. I certainly want to thank the founder of the feast, who is Colin West, my agent. I have not found a way of saying my agent that doesn't sound really
Obnoxious.
Yeah.
I'm not judging. I've had an agent for years.
It's true, you have, but you're an author. That's something about that seems more legitimate. Colin is many things, but to what he is to me is a person who makes the creation of quality informational content a sustainable business. And having worked in the news business my entire post-school life, that is not a thing that I take for granted. So I thank you, Colin, for the cake and the cookies, and I thank you for making all of this possible. Of course, none of this would be possible without you, and we want to express our most sincere gratitude for watching the little programming that we do here, and hopefully you'll continue to watch, and hopefully I'll continue to make things that are worth your time and attention. But it really has been a remarkable journey over the last 18 months, and as Diamond David Lee Roth would say, it ain't no fun without an audience. R.I.P. Eddie. It also would not be possible without the sponsor of this video. You cannot spell 1 million subscribers without Squarespace.
So yeah, anagrams aren't my strong suit, but helping you build and run a beautiful and functional website is right in the wheelhouse of Squarespace. Maybe you just need to make a public portfolio of your creative work, or you need to take appointments for your small business. Maybe you need to build a store where you can take orders. I'm working on that right now. Squarespace does it all for you. All you need are some pictures to upload. The rest of the design is already done for you. And once you have your site assembled, Squarespace is your partner in running it. They'll handle all the credit card transactions, calculating sales tax, all that jazz. And check this out, they have new built-in SEO tools, search engine optimization. Just do what they tell you to do and your website will become much more easily found by people who are seeking out whatever it is that you have to offer. Squarespace can help you reach your audience goals just as they have helped me reach mine. You can fool around with a Squarespace template right now for free, but when you're ready to publish your site or register a custom domain, save 10% with my link and code in the description, and you'll be doing us both a favor. Thank you a million times, Squarespace. Onward and upward we go together.
Next question.
Well, how does it feel to have hit 1 million subscribers?
It feels delicious. It feels super good. I know, on the one hand, it feels great. On the other hand, it is a totally meaningless benchmark, right? If the ancient Assyrians or whoever gave us the, base 10 number system had come up with a base 8 number system, then it would be the 800,000 follower, but it wouldn't have been called that. It would be called something else. Anyways, and the other thing is what's it? Apparently I got schmutz.
It's in the corner.
Got some cookie schmutz in the corner. All right. The other thing is that it's subscriber count is not so much an indication of how big you are on YouTube. More, it's an indication of how long you've been big on YouTube, right? Because subscribers are cumulative. People tend to subscribe to things and not unsubscribe to them, even if they stop watching the videos.
Although some do like to tell you when they're unsubscribing.
Yeah, that's right.
They like to slam the door on their way out.
Bye. And so, it's not super meaningful. I mean, what has been much more meaningful up to this point has been I guess it's now about 3 million unique viewers a month. that we get here, which is, I'm speechless. To make things that other people find useful is the best outcome that a person could have. Well, no, it's the second best outcome that a person could have. To make things that other people find useful and appreciate, and also the making of which provides you with a comfortable living, that's really, it doesn't, nothing is better than that. Literally nothing is better than that. Well, like world peace and ending.
And your children, and a happy
yeah,
marriage.
well, I know, this does benefit them.
That's true.
Okay?
That's true. But I think, for the record, the children are better than the million subscribers.
Well, we wouldn't be able to send the children to the doctor or whatever if it weren't for what? I am going to eat my makgeolli. Drink. Eat. Well, anyway, it really grosses out. This is my homebrewed makgeolli, and I just need to disperse the sediment. Ooh, it's still fermenting. You hear that release of gas? Ah, so good. It's honestly very, very delicious. Thank you, Korea, for giving us this. Next question.
What is the easiest yet most impressive meal to cook for your significant other's parents?
There's a lot of potential there. I suppose it depends if you want something quick or not quick, right? If it doesn't have to be quick, what I would highly recommend would be some kind of stewed dish, right? Because that's something that you could conceivably actually do the day before. Any kind of high pressure social situation, what you want is like a braise. Because, you can do it the day before, you can do it the day of, it doesn't matter, but like once it's done, it's gonna sit there and stay done, as good as it's ever gonna be all day long. There's just like no time pressure, it doesn't have to come all at the last possible second. So I have, let's see, just any kind of stew or pot roast or beef bourguignon or, if you want something slightly more difficult, there's my braised glazed short rib recipe, which I think I also call candied beef butter. That's one that's like, really quite impressive. And once it's done, it can hold for probably days, And then that way, just like everybody can relax, you're gonna be relaxed, you're not gonna be like doing that kind of obnoxious thing where even though the meal is supposed to be about them and you giving them pleasure and them feeling satisfied and happy, it ends up being about you because you need to get everybody away from the living room and into the dining room at exactly this moment so that everybody will be in position when my, perfectly medium steak and perfectly green peas, hit the plate. Because they're only going to be good for like a few seconds and everyone needs to appreciate my brilliance within the very, very short window in which that is possible, right? That's just like, it's not good for you, it's not good for them, it's not good for anybody. So I would absolutely suggest a braise.
Have you ever thought of live streaming while cooking?
No?
I want to co-sign on to that one.
Yeah, that seems like a terrible idea. For a number of the reasons that I just elucidated, right? That like things go wrong and there's pressure and just, nobody needs to see that or be exposed to that. It's also like, the whole point of video as a medium is that it's reality with the boring parts cut out, right? Like, live streams, even with like really, really compelling people, I think tend to be kind of boring. That's not a medium that I think is super great, unless it's for the interactivity, right? And I think that, we could do sort of like a live streamed thing, maybe with a constrained audience size where we're answering questions in real time, and maybe that would be interesting. But yeah, kind of a cook-along live sort of situation. Like there's a reason that like that show, I think it was called Cook Along Live on like the Food Network, like didn't work, and they very gradually changed the format to make it less and less of an actual literal live cook along until eventually it was just probably a reality competition show. I don't know. That's what everything ends up as, right?
At what point did you realize you could start doing YouTube full time?
Do you remember?
I think it was maybe like, so The pizza video went viral in March of 2019. And I think around June, you'd had the pizza video, you'd had the cookies, and then your other videos.
It sounds like a disease.
You'd had the pizza and you'd had the cookies. And then you had the rest of your videos were doing well. I mean, they weren't viral, but they were doing well. And so you came to me and you were like, I think I want to quit my job. And I was like, whoa, buddy.
That was like toward the early summer, right? Or end of the spring semester 2019.
I think it was like May or June.
Yeah, somewhere around there was when like the money was like enough that the math made sense.
Yeah. Well, and so I sat down, which I should tell everybody that like back in 2000, I don't know, 9, 10. I guess it was 2010, and I wanted to quit my job and work part-time so that I could write this book that had I don't know if it had sold or not. And I sat down and I did all the math to show that like we could make all the bills and with this part-time job and all of this stuff. And you were like, sure, follow your dreams because you're a great husband. And so we did the same thing again. I sat down with all our bills and I made sure like this is how much you'd have to make to pay the bills. This is how much you'd have to make to buy our own health insurance because we live in this stupid country that doesn't have it. And that was it's a huge expense. And I said, so, and then like a cushion to be comfortable. And I said, if you make this much in a month, you can quit. And like you blew past it.
Yeah.
In a matter of weeks.
But there definitely was between when like, you know, the first pizza video blew up randomly and when like that moment happened, there was definitely times in those like kind of 3 months or so where it was not clear that it was going to happen, right? You know, I think just having worked in media and knowing how these things work, like I saw the potential for this to happen very early on. But there were definitely moments when like the numbers went like we're going down, 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 down. And I was kind of trying to, you know, it's like you don't know if it's like a mechanical thing and you don't know if it's actually going to catch, you know, if the chain is going to catch on the rotor or whatever, right? And there were moments where I was kind of thinking, I'm not sure it's going to catch.
Well, and I think as a result, you were just like putting out videos as like trying to do the schedule as hard as you could because it was like, this could end at any minute, so I'm just going to do it until it dies. And then it just didn't.
Yeah. And that's great. But also, I mean, like, you know, I have still found those metrics to be tremendously cyclical, even to this day. Like right now, I'm kind of like, you know, on the kind of, I think, kind of top end of like a peak. Like I think I'm going to start going down in a cycle right now. It's been really, really high for the last few weeks. You know, it's really, it's crazy. There's nothing grows in a straight line, you know, and certainly, like, you know, one reason why I work with Colin and do work with, you know, brands like Squarespace is that if I was only relying on like the YouTube AdSense money, I would be having a heart attack all the time because that vacillates within a range that you would not believe. I mean, it's like, it's crazy the variation in that monthly income, and I would just have a heart attack if that was the only source of income for all of us. So, thanks again.
What is the story behind your Instagram profile picture?
That's me with four-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, only man to lose the title and get it back. This was right before the 2009 Jay Cutler Classic. Maybe 2010 Jay Cutler Classic in Boston, and unfortunately, right before he lost the Olympia to Phil Heath, which was 2011. So maybe I have the years all wrong, but anyways, it was right before he lost the title, and I don't know. I like bodybuilding. I'm a fan of professional bodybuilding, and
right?
I was interviewing him for a story, but like I totally like made up the story in order to be able to like meet Jay Cutler, you know. And it was a good story too. Like I turned in a fun story, but like, yeah, you know, it was mostly I wanted to shake Jay Cutler's hand. And what I remember thinking was how his hand felt like it was like a water balloon or something. Like it was like he's my height. He was actually, I think maybe a little bit short. I mean, he bills himself as 5'9". I'm 5'8", and I think he was a little bit shorter than me.
I thought you were 5'10".
I'm not 5'10".
I don't know about height, so you're as tall as you are. I don't know. It doesn't mean...
I don't see height.
I just really feel like in my heart.
In my heart, you know. Super sweet guy, very, very kind. You know, one of the nicest people who's ever been at the top of their pursuit is Jay Cutler, I think.
Is there anything you eat and enjoy because of nostalgia? And what were your favorite foods as a kid?
Gosh, so many. I don't even know where to begin. Can you think of one? Either for yourself or for me?
For I every once in a while will buy myself pizza Lunchables, which are categorically disgusting, but I sort of like them.
Oh.
And I also recently bought Little Debbie's Star Crunch, and I mean, I was eating this and I was like, I don't know if this is good, but it is giving me like my best middle school lunchbox life.
Oh my God, my leg is so asleep. I just have to like let the blood recirculate. Excuse me. Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, like this cookie kind of reminds me of like Christmas sugar cookies that like my mom would make, and I have very, very powerful attachments to those. Obviously, that's why we make them every year. To this day. I think I've talked before about Scotch whiskey and how it kind of reminds me of our time in Scotland after we got married, and that's all kinds of wonderful, happy memories. How about you? Well, let me know about it. I'm a professional.
You're such a good YouTuber.
I know.
As a Pennsylvanian, I have to ask, Pennsylvania or Georgia?
As a Pennsylvanian, I have to answer Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is a really... Like Pennsylvania is just, it's got all of America in it. It's all there, except for the West Coast. And the Rockies and the deserts.
Yeah.
All right, so if we're talking about like the original 13 colonies America, it's all there in Pennsylvania.
And we're always only talking about the original 13 colonies.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's just got, I think the landscape is so beautiful and I miss it so much. That kind of like ridge and valley system landscape is so beautiful. And because my folks moved back up there and they just send pictures from this green valley and it's beautiful. And I know that like very shortly it's going to be desolate and bleak and I'll be very glad to be living in Georgia. But this time of year, man, I miss it all the time.
Well, we were saying, we always talk about like, we're coming out of why does anyone live here season. Mm-hmm. Heading into like, this is okay. Yeah. And then come like March.
Yeah, spring in Georgia.
Oh my God. It's
wonderful.
I never knew that spring was nice until
I hated spring in Pennsylvania. It's just damp.
And still cold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does your background in journalism and teaching inform how you produce your videos? They remind me so much of lectures from my professors in a way I really value.
Oh, well, that's nice. Absolutely. I mean, it obviously does. This is something I've talked about and written about a bit. So I actually, I'll link to it in the description, but I actually gave a speech to a writers group in Atlanta sort of about how specifically news writing informs the way I write for this channel. You might find that interesting. But what I might say in addition to things I've said previously is like I do sometimes feel that background informs what I do here too much. And I've actually, especially of late, tried to deprogram some of those habits in how I do my work here. I think that I can come off as pedantic. I am pedantic a lot of the time, right? And that's not a good thing to be. And it's some people find kind of the professorial presumption of authority to be confidence inducing and kind of calming in a way. I know I do sometimes. But other people can find it really, really off-putting and obnoxious. And I find it obnoxious even out of my own voice sometimes. And so I'm always striving to be, in every line I write, kind of never presuming authority, never presuming to speak for what what we all know to be true or what we all know to be good. All I'm saying is I'm no better than you. I'm no worse than you. The only difference between me and you is that while you were doing your job all day, my job was to do this and to try this recipe out a few dozen times, drop several loaves of naan directly onto the hot electric burner.
Oh my God, the naan.
Yeah, I know, that was rough. The only difference is that I had time to do that while you did what you do, right? And I'm simply reporting back to you what I feel that I discovered, right? And honestly, it's like that's actually kind of what journalism kind of properly is, or at least a certain kind of journalism kind of properly is, right? Journalists, unless you're talking about kind of beat reporters, but general assignment reporters say, we'll combine these comments to general assignment reporters. They're not subject matter experts, right? They're not scholars of whatever the hell it is that they're reporting on. The only difference between, they're just normal people who just had time to go look into this thing today, and they're just letting you know, they're reporting back what they found. And the downside of that way of communicating is that it can make it seem as though everything is about me and my tastes and my experiences and what I like, as opposed to you and your tastes and your experiences and what you like, which you are naturally more interested in, right? You should be more interested in what you like than what I like. The reason that I say in the videos, I did it this way because when I tried it, I found that I liked it better that way. The reason that I say that is not because I think that my tastes are more important than yours. The reason I'm saying that is because I'm trying to not presume as though there's a platonic ideal of how this particular food should be. And obviously everybody knows it should be like this. A proper bleh is like this. Screw that, right? You cannot presume that. Or you should not presume that. All I'm telling you is like what I found out, what I thought worked for me. And in trying to communicate that process to you, I'm hopefully maybe giving you some strategies that you can use to learn what you like, as opposed to learning about what I like.
Lennon or McCartney?
This is interesting. So when I was a wee young pup, I was so Team McCartney. I think because I was a music kid and I was dazzled by Paul's virtuosity, which, really, Lennon and McCartney are both virtuosos in their own ways, but Paul is much more effortlessly virtuosic. So effortless that I think he, at some point along the line, forgot how to try. And that's kind of been the problem with his career for most of his life, is he just kind of forgot how to try hard because he didn't need to, because it was so easy for him to just let something pretty good spill out.
Well, do you think, though, also that most musicians really have, like, a finite period in their life, and then they know that, so then they stop, or they just, like, sit back and, like Billy Joel, and just, like, I play the hits, and I take the money. He talks like that, apparently.
He knew that he had nothing else to contribute, and he was right.
But, like, Paul genuinely loved it and didn't want to stop. He just didn't, he was never going to have it.
Yeah.
Because
it's a great question.
Barfed out $1 billion worth of glorious, amazing songs in 8 years.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean that's a whole other very interesting conversation about how how much does any one person have to say, and why do we keep expecting them to have more to say, right? They often get better at saying it as across iterations, right? They refine their craft. But they're still saying the same thing over and over and over again, and who cares, So that's but the other interesting thing about McCartney, I think, in retrospect, was that I think that Paul writes children's songs. I think there's a reason that young people like Paul McCartney songs. A lot of them are kids' songs, in more ways than one. So
both of our kids have gone through massive Beatles phases. We still sing Yellow Submarine to our little one every single night to go to bed.
Exactly. I definitely have come over to Team John in my old age. I find him to be just a much more interesting human being. I think a lot of I think a lot of his music really is very musically sophisticated and virtuosic in ways that were not obvious to me as a young man, but are more obvious to me now. And he's also someone, he even said this, in some interview he's saying everybody kind of thought like Paul was the melodist and I was the rocker. But like I wrote in my life, come on, like.
One of my favorites.
I know.
This is so interesting to me because when we met, I mean, we've been together 15 years now. And when we met, I remember having this conversation and you were very like, oh, only the hipsters like John Lennon. And you were so dismissive, like he was some like Brooklyn, like flannel wearing rocker. And I loved John Lennon. And yeah, you were very Team Paul and it has changed.
Sure has. And because like, there's the added dimension of like John was an abusive husband and by in many ways apparently an abusive friend, an abusive bandmate, And I think that should factor into the extent of our adulation. But I don't know, there's no way to talk about this without getting into trouble. I should just stop.
Well, I think so because I took. For anyone who went to Indiana University and took Professor Gass's Music of the Beatles class, he just retired, and he was the greatest teacher I ever had. But he always said that, like, the difference between a Lennon person and a McCartney person, like, John put himself out there. Like, it was always about him, and so a lot of people connected to that because they felt like that's what they wanted. And that's why when he died, it was so horrific because you felt like he was your best friend. But Paul was always trying on different voices, which made his music very interesting and very different, but also felt like you had distance from him. You didn't totally know him. And it could make it harder to like him. I definitely think that's why I liked John Lennon.
Why did you like John Lennon?
Because I'm like a lyrics person who like wants to feel like the person singing to me is pouring their heart out into the song. But nobody cares what I think. So.
What's funny though about like that is like, John was also like he was also the guy who wrote total nonsense words. He was not always pouring his heart out, or at least he did not always intend to pour his heart out. There's a great clip on it's on YouTube. Where Harrison is working on the song Something, and they're kind of, Paul and John are kind of helping him kind of workshop this song that he only had a kind of scrap of, and he has no kind of words for it, and he can't even really kind of come up with something to kind of like, he can't even come up with kind of dummy words, and Paul says, just say anything, says something about the way she moves attracts me like a pomegranate, and and it tells you like a lot. It was like, oh, that's what was going through his head as he was coming up with a lot of his words. But at the risk of kind of like imagining some deeper meaning where none actually exists, I actually think there often is. Like that there's something of him and his very troubled soul in almost everything he ever came up with. And maybe he would be the first person to kind of disabuse that notion, right? He would say, it's all just bullshit. I just was coming up with stuff, but it's just kind of like, I'm not even sure if he would be aware of what he had created, right? And that's something that like, God. And in my own work, where I'm so much like John Lennon, but
they're gonna love that in the comments.
Anyone who makes things, anyone who does any kind of creative work at all, like I think it's important for anyone who does any kind of creative work to always remember that you might be good at making your thing, but you probably don't understand your thing, and you probably don't understand what other people like about it or why it's good, if it's good, right? And I try to remember that. So like that whole spiel that I just gave about like, here's how I try to write and why I think it's important. Like I have to think of something, right? I have to have some kind of map in my head, some kind of North Star of quality that I sort of sail my little ship toward. But I also try to be very aware of the fact that like I really have no idea why you are watching this right now, why you like it, and I won't understand it when you stop liking it,
Well, I think, as a novelist, we always talk about like the thing belongs to you and you can put as much of your own meaning and your own intent into it, but as soon as you put it into the public,
yeah, for sure.
it no longer belongs to you, and whatever anyone else out there feels about it is correct. Like, the customer is always right when it comes to creative things.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that you have to accept it, even if it's not true.
Sure. I'm sure it's a little of both. I mean, in my experience.
Yeah. I've gotten better at accepting that.
Have you?
I have.
Well, we have another musical question, one to which I will be able to contribute exactly nothing. So, I know you're a huge fan of early Metallica. What's your opinion on the other big four of thrash, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer? Apparently, people saw you in the comments of some Slayer video or something, and a bunch of people were asking about your thoughts on Slayer or something. I literally could not pick any of these people out of a lineup except maybe Metallica, but only after they cut their hair.
So, obviously the number two of the big four is Megadeth. I don't think that that's any serious person would dispute that in terms of like the scope and scale of their contributions, right? Even though there's lots of things I don't like about Megadeth and Dave Mustaine, but at their peak, Rust in Peace is just it's everything that you want, So the only real kind of competition is like between Slayer and Anthrax. And I think that kind of Slayer is probably a more significant band, like a more important band in terms of their influence on other bands. I think they probably had a more distinct voice, like they had because like Anthrax is like several bands. And that's not just because they changed lead singers, right? They don't have a coherent identity. There's kind of several different kinds of Anthrax, right? Whereas like there really is only one Slayer to a fault, right? But that kind of clarity of vision and aesthetic, I think has helped them to have a bigger impact. But like if I was trapped on a desert island, and I could only have Anthrax or Slayer, I would choose Anthrax every single time. Because Anthrax world is like a much more pleasant place to be, right? Just, some fun, goofy guys made a lot of fun, goofy music. And there's a lot more variety there as well, whereas just like Slayer, it's just like, again, they've refined their craft over the years, but they said all they had to say in the first record, maybe. In terms of like the decency of the human beings who are Slayer, like I have a lot of questions about that. And, yeah. But no, I mean, like there's lots of great things to be said about Slayer. And if you only listen to the drums, maybe they're the best of the big four.
Okay. I just had this memory of right after we started dating, and I was like playing you music that I liked, and I think I played you like, I don't know, like the Shins or something. And
they're good.
Yeah, but I think you sort of made fun of me a little bit, and then you played me Dragon Force, which could not. I was like, oh, you may have been fucking with me a little bit. I don't know.
A little bit.
Yeah, I was like playing you all these different like very earnest singer-songwriter, and you were like, here's my Dragon Force.
It's so, as I've gotten older, it's interesting, like as I've gotten older, I have gotten, it sounds like it's contradictory. I'm not sure that it is. Like I've gotten less tolerant of earnestness and yet more hungry for sincerity, right? Like I'm so sick of kind of irony and,
Well, earnestness is, I think, more about like trying to sound a certain way.
Maybe
and
it's that,
sincerity
yeah.
is actually being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a real difference, especially in music.
Yeah. But it's fun. I mean, that's such a universal thing about aging, right? Is like you just want the real thing more and more as you get older. And maybe it's just that you get better at distinguishing posing from the real thing as you get older, or maybe that's an illusion. Who knows?
All right. Hello, Adam. My fiance and I watch all of your videos, and we are currently in the process of creating our wedding registry.
Ooh.
We would love to know what brand of stainless steel pots and pans you use and what brands are best overall for daily use. Thanks.
Okay. So for a wedding registry, assuming that you have some reasonably well-to-do, extended family who could potentially afford to buy you nice pieces, right? Like, I really think the wedding registry is the time to ask people for some, really serious stuff, right? So, some Le Creuset glazed cast iron pieces or something like that. The wedding registry was invented for pieces like that, or rather, pieces like that were invented for the wedding registry. If you don't have people of that kind of means, on your guest list, or if you're just kind of, searching for things, it's so awkward because it's like I do sort of endorse products in this world, right? But like, this is a completely uncompensated comment that I've said before and I'll say again. I consistently find that Calphalon offers the best bang for buck of all of the major brands with pretty much anything that they make, from knives to pots and pans or whatever. And they're not the best. They're certainly not the best, right? I'm not saying that. It's kind of low to mid market is their kind of niche. But I think that they inhabit that niche extremely well. Like, bang for buck with Calphalon can't be beat among any major brand that I'm aware of.
I also want to add that I think it's really important, and maybe harder because of COVID, but if you can, especially you and your fiance, I don't want to presume to know who you are, but pick up the pans, because
yes,
like, for a long time, the hot thing were these handles that they were meant to be picked up underhanded, which is great for chefs and burly dudes.
So they're concave on top, and they.
But I am a delicate flower with tiny little wrists, and I had trouble lifting a pan full of water with one hand because I needed an overhand grip, and so Adam searched and found me the perfect pan that I could lift. And then after a while I went and melted it on the stove because I'm a kitchen disaster.
This was something, man. I never expected to see this, but it was just sort of a mid-market pan, low to mid-market pan.
Well, you bought me another one. We have it somewhere.
It had this layer of aluminum cladding within it, as most pans do, and not cladding. The stainless steel is cladding. It's underneath the cladding. What? Subcladding.
Insulation or something.
No. There was an aluminum component to this pan, right? And she left a pan with some water to boil for pasta. So the pan was on high, right? And then she took a bath and forgot about it.
I'm almost positive I was pregnant during that time, so I blame pregnancy brain.
Sure, yeah, fine. So the water all boiled out, and then I went over and I saw it, and then I went to sort of pick it up, and molten aluminum came pouring out of this thing.
It was so bright silver looking. It was amazing.
It was really quite. Do a YouTube search for molten aluminum, because there's lots of videos where you can see molten aluminum. It's very cool stuff.
Well, then I thought that had destroyed because we had the electric range with the spiral tops, and I thought I'd killed the stove too.
Yeah, but as soon as they cooled down, they just chipped right off. Yeah, it was pretty neat actually. But it's yet another demonstration of these bizarrely little known or talked about fact that resistance coil electric stoves are generally far more powerful than gas stoves. They can get incredibly hot, and things that you never hear professional chefs talking about may happen to you on an electric stove, because none of them use it, and as a result they don't know your life. They don't know you. That was quite a thing. How did we get on that?
The wedding registry.
Sorry, the wedding registry. So really quick, so you made a really good point, which is that you gotta hold it, right? It's like buying clothes. You can't. You have to touch it, right?
So mask up and go out and touch some pots and pans.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, wash your hands and go touch some pots and pans. Because I think I've talked about this with knives before. I think it's so consistently true that people reach for the tool that feels good in their hand, not necessarily the tool that is the best one for the job. And so if it doesn't feel good in your hand, it doesn't matter how good it is or how expensive it is. You're just not going to reach for it. And if it stays in the drawer, it does absolutely nothing for you. So that's paramount, is how it feels in your hand. And certainly, like, one thing that I think I've been guilty of is kind of forgetting that, like, a whole lot of people who cook don't have the wrist strength of a normal healthy grown man, right? Things like cast iron, everyone's like, oh, cast iron is the only way to cook a steak. Well, a lot of people who deserve to have a good tasting dinner too literally cannot handle one of those. And so, don't be bullied around by that kind of attitude. Like, get a pan that's as heavy as you can handle, because, weight is usually generally good with pans, but, like, get something that you can handle, or you're not going to use it. And what good is it going to do you then?
What's your go-to vinaigrette?
I like lemon, and I don't usually use all olive oil.
I even had trouble saying that.
Yeah.
Olive oil.
And I usually cut my olive oil with a neutral oil, because I just think that on something as subtle as a salad, extra virgin olive oil can be a little too strong. So I'll just do that, and lemon juice, and usually some, like, finely chopped shallots, and then, like, a squeeze of honey. And that's a real good dressing.
I also like it with mustard in it.
Mustard, oh yeah, love it with mustard in it. My dad's trick that I kind of grew up with is celery leaves in the dressing. Real good.
Any tips for transitioning to working from home?
God, I could tell you what not to do.
Well, that works too.
I mean, I think I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of a parent. I don't know if you're a parent. But, like, there's this kind of cruel irony, which is that you're almost more absent as a parent when you work from home. Because when you leave the home to work, you're gone, right? And then you can come back when the workday is over and hey, daddy's home, and, you can have a good time, and you're the hero. But when you work from home, you're there, and therefore your absence is much more conspicuous, and it's just constant. Sorry, buddy, I'm working. Sorry, buddy, can't do it. Sorry, buddy, later. Sorry, buddy, tomorrow. Today's a work day.
I should also point out that because of the way our house is laid out, there's not really a place Adam can go and close the door.
Yeah.
So you're just sort of out with small people running around all the time.
So it's very difficult, and as just literally billions of people are living right now in the world. So, I don't know. Maybe the answer long term for us would be to kind of figure out a way for me to have a bit more of a physically removed space that I can go to. But even that isn't even really possible when we have very young children who really require constant supervision,
And they're always here.
Yeah. Once they get older, maybe.
Or actually start going to school.
Yeah.
We're doing virtual kindergarten, so.
Which is going shockingly well. And just a massive, massive thank you to anyone in the audience who's a teacher. Thank you for your service.
I would also add to working from home is to get a nice ergonomic setup. I just bullied Adam into a standing desk.
Lauren got me a standing desk, and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's so great. And it actually has really helped with parenting, because it enables me to, like, put out a fire over here, walk over to the desk and do something useful for a second, and then run right over here to, keep somebody else from killing themselves, And there's much less of that kind of disruptive transition of sitting down into the chair and getting oriented again. If you just walk up to the computer, you can kind of more seamlessly transition in and out of working. I have found that to be tremendously useful, to say nothing of all the physical stuff. This is true of, it's true of like lots of people with lots of jobs, but it's something that like video editors complain about in particular, just because video editing is like, it's a computer job that requires, very, very long stretches of near continuous laser focus, right? I mean, I've done other computer-based jobs that are not like that, where it's much more, you can kind of do something here and then go and do something here and then go and do something there, and kind of like, editing video is.
This is riveting footage.
For like 16 hours at a time, it is, and once you do that, you start, all kinds of really bad physical stuff starts to happen to you. And I obviously can't stand all the time, but it gives me another variation, right? To just kind of change up my spinal alignment, for some part of the day.
All right, final question. What is something you would have liked to do during your kitchen renovation, but were unable to accommodate for financial and or logistical reasons?
Well, the kitchen still slopes downhill rather dramatically right over there.
I know. I deeply regret not paying closer attention to that. I should have asked them to level the floor over there. I was so concerned with where
I'll give you a shot
sitting.
about it.
Like where you're sitting was so sloped.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in and the floor guys being like, well, your floor's going to slope. And I said, I sure would like it not to.
Yeah.
And so then they leveled it. And then I was so focused on that I didn't pay attention. I acted as our general contractor. So I think an actual general contractor would have noticed that. So yes, that will bother me as long as we live in this house.
Which might not be forever, so that's our way out. That or death.
God. Why are we ending all of these videos with death? The last one was about
that is the only end that there is.
Stop it.
Another answer to your question, I will say, and this is a thing where we disagree, is that I wish we had gotten an induction stovetop. Just because the fear of kids burning themselves is something
that happened.
It happened, right? Like it happened,
Our
and it's
oldest
just like
kid leaned over on the stove after it had been turned off, and I'll never forget that.
Never going to forget that scream for the rest of my life, right? And this is, I don't know, this interesting kind of side note about this. That whole episode made me think a lot about like kind of empathy and maybe like strategies for honing and developing your empathy further. And because what I sort of experienced from that was, a tremendously mild, teeny tiny little infinitesimal case of kind of post-traumatic stress, right? Like I really had trouble coming in here for a while. And it was bad, And what I kind of thought about was like, a way that I could better understand people who have had seriously traumatic experiences would be to think about that feeling, kind of captured in a bottle in my head, and then imagine it multiplied by 100, And doing that in my head, I think kind of gave me some slightly better sense of what, people who've lived through serious trauma have experienced. And I've tried to then apply that to kind of other things, like places where I might have experienced 1/1000th of what somebody else experiences, channel that feeling, multiply it in my head, and then make a mental note of that. I don't know, just an idea. Induction ceramic stovetops will get hot simply because of the heat from the pan being conducted back down into the glass, but they cool off a lot faster. They don't get nearly as hot. And so I think I would recommend to anyone with small children, if you can afford it, go with an induction stovetop.
I want one of those kitchens that has, and we can't have this because our kitchen is too small, but I want where you can have like a desk set up in the kitchen. So when Brant designed this kitchen for us with the island, and he talked a lot about like, you know, kids will do homework there while you guys are cooking, and there will be lots of hanging out, and there really is. Like, I really love this as a gathering space. That really has worked, and I think if we had one, like, you know, you see those kitchens, and in the corner is like a little office area, I think that would do it too. Yeah. But we'd need a much larger house for that.
So keep clicking.
So 2 million.
2 million.
Next stop.
Yeah, everybody asked if I was going to have like a 1 million subscriber special, and I don't know what I would do. I feel like this is the kind of thing, like an AMA is kind of what people do for their 1 million.
It happened all of a sudden.
Yeah,
too.
it also happened really fast because, like I said, the numbers are cyclical, and I just kind of happened to be on like a really kind of big upward swing when this kind of happened, and it just happened about a month earlier than I had planned. And so I don't know. I mean, I could do something at the number that is much more meaningful to me, which would be the 1,234,567 subscriber special. So if you have ideas about like something that I could do for you that would be fun to mark that much more important benchmark, far less arbitrary benchmark.
You're such a nerd.
then let me know about it. But otherwise, really from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for changing our lives, for making our lives far more secure and comfortable, and that's to have the kind of constant fear of imminent financial doom lifted from you. To not be kind of like one car accident away from ruin, or one, not even, in the United States, not even a serious illness, a moderate illness, away from ruin or something like that. It's amazing how much brain space that kind of frees up, how much kind of emotional
physical
energy
tension.
and tension, is released when you don't have that hanging over your head. And
we've tried to keep in mind what that felt like, and give back as much as we can, and be useful where we can, because it changed for us very quickly, and it can change for anybody very quickly in any direction.
And it could change right back for us real quick.
Which is
so I hope I didn't piss anybody off talking about John Lennon. I don't know.
But that's also why we're still driving our old cars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you much, and see you soon.